Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast. The season is unfortunately drawing to a close, but these guys are still here bringing you all the best football they can bring. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously the big one, share the podcast around. If you've got a football fan in your life, send this podcast in their direction. They'll love it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, football podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to what's becoming one of the last CookieCast football podcasts of the season, as we discussed in previous weeks. Middlesbrough and Hull have no games left, and after this particular podcast, there's only one game left for Nottingham Forest. So let's not beat around the bush any longer. I'm obviously joined by our Hull and Nottingham Forest correspondents, as it were, Mr. Moore and Mr. Woodmansey. How are we this week, gents?
Good. It's been another week where we've not lost, so mark that one on the record books.
It's incredible. I'm pretty sure if I was to look, I'm sure I'll manage to find some way that Borough have indeed lost the game they weren't even playing.
No, wait until you get round to August again, and this will be the longest undefeated streak this year.
We can but hope. So, as we said, the game we'll be predicting will be the last game of the season for Nottingham Forest. But before we get to the last game of the season, we have to discuss the second to last game of the season, where they went to, as mentioned on last week's podcast, arguably the worst stadium in the Premier League that's not named Vitality Stadium, where West Ham United were taking on Nottingham Forest. And this one actually started quite nicely, Matthew.
Yeah. I think, obviously I've been calling for it for weeks, but I think Forest set out on the front foot. Obviously they need to win the game. West Ham don't, because, there was three terrible teams in the league this year. And if there hadn't have been those three terrible teams, there might have been a bit more, I would say five terrible teams, including the two playing the Europa thing tonight. They might have been in a bit more peril if the league had been a bit stronger this year. But yeah, so Forest went out early on, 15th minute, I think. I think Gibbs White had an early chance, missed that one. But given a second opportunity, same old nonsense. Team's trying to play it out the back. Obviously, Forest had studied this one. That was a bit more time to prepare in between games. I think so. There's quite a. So I'm going to shout out our Forest podcast. Forest Focus. They have a Nottingham, a goalkeeper. I think he's Harrogate Town's goalkeeper. I think he comes on the podcast because he's a Nottingham lad, and he said how Forest had cut out, so they put the high press on because they know that West Ham like to play it out, but Alanga had cut off like the outlet that people have behind the keeper or to the side of the keeper, so then that left him with nowhere to go, and Ward-Prowse and the other midfielder left him with nowhere to pass to, but I think Gibbs White went towards Prowse, but then cut back and took the ball, stuck it in the back of net. Nice finish. Kind of played it out. Apparently, West Ham didn't offer much at all. But Forest went in 1-0 at half-time. Not long after half-time, got a free kick on about the kind of 10-yard, about the penalty spot, level with the penalty spot. Alanga whipped it in, and it went in off somebody. And after a 6-minute VAR review, they had to decide whether Dominguez was offside and touched it and was interfering, or Gibbs White was offside or interfering. and then they decided that Kate went in off the back of Nikola Milenkovic. It was one of them ones where it just had to hit somebody on the way in, and hopefully not a Forest player in an offside position, because it was just one of them ones where it wouldn't have gone in without the touch, but it was one of them ones where if he would have whipped it in to go in, it probably would have gone in anyway, kind of thing. But then of course Nuno has to do his let's hold on to the 2-0, and then we don't. So I think like West Ham had started to have a few more chances, because obviously Forest was sitting back, conceding corners, all that kind of thing. Fulkrug had a couple of headers. Sal's made a really good save before. Then cross in. Morato tried to head it clear, didn't get enough on it. I think again from like the analysis that I heard was realistically he was facing the wrong way. So the direction to get the most power would have headed it straight back across the goal towards Fulkrug, that could have led to a West Ham chance. So he tried to head it up and away. But I mean, for all the criticism of Sal's not being in a good position, Morato's header not being great, should they have been closer on Bowen? That touch and finish was absolutely immense. Like, it's one of them ones where there's no way he's staying at that club this summer. There's no way.
I was just gonna say that's one of those players who like deserves to be playing so much higher up.
The only way he's staying at West Ham is because his father-in-law's Danny Dyer, and he's worried about his knees. That must be the only thing that he must be kind of thinking about, because like he must. There's only way. The only thing that's happening is he's turning down moves to better clubs, because like the constant chatter of this player going here and this player going there. I don't understand how he's not the first player on a lot of teams' lists higher up the league. Those kind of the big 4 to 6 teams.
He's got that thing though where he's still quite young in relative terms, obviously, because not going to compare him to Old Man Coyle or anything. He's English, and therefore that means treble the price. So
yeah, I suppose that's I mean, obviously Forest have got that potential thing to look at with somebody in our team, possibly. But yeah, so absolutely amazing finish. I think all the criticism seemed a bit harsh, to be fair, because it's just one of them goals that you think. And no, I don't think anybody's really made enough of a deal of it. I don't know. I've not really watched a whole lot of TV, like sports TV, over the past few days. It feels like if it had been a goal to win a game, then everyone would have been talking about it for the next week. But he didn't. It wasn't, and they didn't. But you feel like saying that goal really needed to be talked about, because the touch was immense, and it was just on the volley. I mean, it didn't even hit the ground. Like, it's ridiculous.
I think, not that I'm a West Ham fan, obviously, but I think a lot of West Ham fans will see that goal this season as effectively summing up the season. Potentially their goal of the season didn't win anything. Like the game, nothing. Like it was a hell of a finish. Like you could give him that ball another like 99 times and he might fuck it up every time. But the touch like on the side of his foot to flick it up was just spot on.
I'd say the next if he tried that like 10 times, 9 times out of 10, he'd just about reach row A after it's gone over the athletics track. So
that's very much a shots fired, but because it's such a shit stadium, doesn't make the crowd. So
then ensued to start with an allocated minimum 12 minutes additional time at the end of the game, but then a bit of bits and bobs here and there. Apparently, a bit of a melee. Forest are in trouble again from that, and 14 minutes of added time, but Forest managed to shut them out and come away with, I kind of get the feeling, our first win at the London Stadium.
Yes, there was the game dragged on for so long, but they were unable to do any coverage on the sort of the wrap up. They had to go straight into the Arsenal Newcastle game. Was it Arsenal Newcastle? Or was it Liverpool? No, Liverpool got on Monday. Yeah, they had to go straight to the Arsenal Newcastle game at 4:30. That tells you just how long the added time sort of dragged on for. So a 2-1 Nottingham Forest win. Let's see how the points get divvied out. And I can say everyone did score points this week. How many? We're about to find out now. So I had a 2-2 draw with Wood and Elanga to score for Nottingham Forest. No points there. Ward-Prowse and Bowen to score for West Ham. So I got myself my one bonus point for my Bowen goal. Stuart 1-0 Nottingham Forest. Wood to score. So no points for goal scorers, but a point for the Nottingham Forest win. Matt had a 3-2 win for West Ham. Had gone for Souček, Ward-Prowse and Bowen to score. Wood and Anderson for Nottingham Forest. That's where Matt gets his bonus point from the Bowen goal. Andy Cook, however, 2-0 Nottingham Forest win, point. Wood, no point. Gibbs White gets himself a second point and wins the week. Well done to Mr. Cook. Very, very well done. So, that's week 38, done and dusted. Week 39, like I've said before, brings with it the final game of the season. And, it's a juicy one. It's almost, but not quite, a Champions League playoff, as it were. So let me just get the old table up as it stands currently. So not to date the podcast in any way, shape or form, but Man City may or may not have played last night and won their remaining game in hand. So let's have a look. That was everyone on 37 games played. The top four, obviously Liverpool won the league. Arsenal have now finished. Arsenal still can be caught in theory with 71 points. Man City can still catch them, but Newcastle can't. What a shame for a couple of people that were saying that it's nailed on. The Toons getting second place. I don't think fucking are, lads. So maybe just temper those expectations back a little bit.
They would love it though. They would love it if they came second in the Premier League.
Calm down, Kev. Calm down. So second is, to all intents and purposes, done. Then we've got Newcastle, 4th, 66 points. Chelsea, 5th, 66 points. Newcastle 4th, Chelsea 5th. Villa 6th, 66 points. Forest 7th, 65. So, if Forest win, they know they won't be playing in the Conference League next season because the lowest they could possibly finish is 6th. Obviously, if Chelsea win, Forest can't get any higher than 7th. So they pretty much will be consigned to the Conference League as it stands. There is a potential that they can finish 7th and still get in the Europa League, but that's dependent on Chelsea. Oh no, it's not. So Chelsea have to win the Conference League and finish 7th, and I believe that's when the Premier League gets the extra European place. It's all very convoluted, but as far as Forest are concerned, just win the game, see what happens, and we'll go from there. So, with that in mind, I have my prediction, and I have Andy's prediction in the book. So, why don't we go to Stu first, then I'll read out these two predictions, and we'll finish with Mr. Moore. So, Stu, what have you got as your prediction for Forest versus Chelsea? Live, no less, on the Sky Sports telly box.
I think it will be a fairly nervy affair from both sides, but I do have Forest to sneak it 1-0 with Elanga to score.
Very nice. Very nice.
I get the feeling it'll either be so nervy it'll be like level for ages, or it'll just be let's just play with no keepers, lads, and be like 3-3 or something ridiculous. But I've gone for the.
You think it's more likely that we end up with a hockey style? Let's pull the keeper and we'll just go all out attack. Nice. Yeah, I like it. So Mr. Cook is in agreement, but he's gone with a 2-0 Forest win. He also has Elanga, but he's also gone with Wood as his first goal scorer.
He's got Elanga Wood.
He's a healthy young chap. That's all we need to say. I'm also in agreement. I also think it'll be a Forest win. I've gone for 2-1. However, I've gone for Wood, and obviously the old boy rule fully in effect here. Mr. Hudson-Odoi to put his former team to the sod. How much was it that Forest got him for? Like 4 million or something.
3 million with add-ons up to 5, apparently. So
absolute steal. And then I've gone with Jadon Sancho to sign off in very uninspiring form from his loan move from Manchester United to Chelsea, which just leaves us with the main man. Is there a position where you'll be able to watch the game?
I was talking to Stu about this before. It'll probably be a fork out for Now TV for the day for the extortionate amount that they charge, $11.50, I think, or something like that for the day now.
Can't convince the family it'd be beneficial to take a trip to the nearest pub.
Two problems with that. One, no, and and two, unfortunately, due to where I live, another team will be on the television. Yeah,
highly disappointing.
They no doubt that particular team will be the main thing on most TVs, and and thirdly, I don't want to be in a pub with them lot if it goes their way as well. So that would be the kind of like triple whammy of the lot. So yeah, so I'll probably be ending up watching it at home if at all, because sometimes I'm just like, oh god, it's just too nerve-wracking to watch it, and if I watch it, it'll make it worse anyway, and all that kind of silly superstitious stuff. You lot are way too confident.
I knew you was going to say that.
I feel like Chelsea owe us anyway, because I think we beat them last season, at the last day of the season. I feel like we played them like right on the last day of the season. I'm not sure if we beat them or certainly drew with them. And you've forgotten the always legitimate, completely legitimate rule that's absolutely real. When England players that play against our teams, when they're out of form, guarantee that they'll come straight back into form. Also, Chelsea don't have a striker because Nicholas Jackson lost his head against Newcastle the other week.
Jackson.
So who knows who they're going to play up front? My worry is that it's Cole Palmer. And here we go. 3-1 to Chelsea. I just feel my worry is hopefully that, I know like Forza Garibaldi that are like the kind of fan group that do all the displays and all that kind of thing. I've said they've got loads of things planned around the area, which suggests flares, lots of kind of hostile kind of welcome for Chelsea's bus. As it comes into the ground, I think it's going to be a big kind of thing, and you kind of hope, hopefully the players can ride that crest. I sometimes worry that they won't. The most important thing, shock, horror on this, well, not always with some teams, but the most important thing on Sunday will be the first goal. If Forest get it, then Forest can set themselves up. It might take the wind out of Chelsea's sails quickly. If Chelsea get it, then we've seen it all season that Forest very much struggle to get goals back, and I think if they commit themselves too much to get the goal, which they won't, but Chelsea could end up ripping us to shreds later on as well. So I've gone Palmer, Fernandez, and is it Madueke? Madueke for Chelsea, and I've gone old boy rules for Callum Hudson-Odoi. He was 3 million with up to 5 million with add-ons, which I think was like appearances and stuff like that. But also there's a substantial sell-on clause, and nobody's quite sure. It could be anywhere between 25 to 50% of any future sales. But, let's face it, if we sold him for 50, 60 million at the end of the season, if we get 30, that means we've got 25 million profit of a player that was on the scrap heap.
I was going to say, I think at this point, it's even if they're selling for 20 million, they've made their money back and made a profit. So I think it's one of those ones that it's kind of a lose-lose, really. Even if he goes on a free at the end of his contract, it's not as if they've paid over the odds for him and stuff like that. And he's definitely scored some vital goals for him. They've more than got their money's worth out of him already, I would say.
Yeah, I think the problem is you want that kind of them to make a bit of money on him on the way out, because we were the one who took the risk, kind of thing, and paid him 85 grand a week as well. Don't forget that, that little kind of chestnut.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, very, very true.
Cheap on price, not cheap on wages. So yeah, but yeah, fingers crossed. I think I know. Anything other than Champions League, I'll be a little bit disappointed. But what I've got to think is at the end, and I think was it. I mean, I hate talking about him because the guy's a knob. But Gary Neville was like, if they end up in the Europa League or Conference League, they can probably win those, because he's like, let's face it, they've been better than Tottenham and Manchester United this year, and those two have got to the finals of the Europa League. And he's like, and Chelsea's B-C team have got to the conference final as well, kind of thing.
I think at this point there's an argument to be made that it's probably the E team for Chelsea, because they've got that many players. Yeah.
Did you see the thing in the news about Pep Guardiola's threatening to leave Manchester City unless they reduce the size of the squad? Imagine if he walked into Chelsea. Imagine if he walked into Chelsea.
What an absolute bellend! And he's such a liar. There's no way that he's walking away from that game, unless he's using it as an excuse to try and get out earlier than he wanted to, which seems baffling because he only agreed a contract extension last summer.
Yeah.
The only thing I can assume with that one is he's looked at the situation, he's thought, we're screwed, and he's thinking,
this rebuild's a little bit bigger than I first thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of dead wood in that squad that they're going to struggle to get rid of. Someone said, I saw something today about, obviously Grealish is coming to an end at they reckon the Grealish's time at Man City's over. Oh, possible destination Forest. I'm like, I don't want him.
You've already got one of them. You don't need another. It's fine.
Well, we've got the discount one.
You say this, but last night when he came on against Bournemouth, he was sporting a new slicked back ponytail look. Old Jack. So maybe he's changed his hair ways. I don't know. Yes. So that is the last prediction for the season, ladies and gentlemen. So the predictions portion of the podcast is all done and dusted. However, there has been developments over at the MKM Stadium in the managerial and recruitment departments. Has there not, Mr. Woodmansey?
Yes. So we talked about it last week, about how the meeting had been scheduled for earlier last week, and in true football podcast style, they kept it nicely to announce the day after we'd recorded that Ruben Sayers had indeed been relieved of his position. So he leaves having won 9 of his 28 games in charge, so a 32% win rate, which, considering he didn't even get a full season, I suppose isn't the worst. Again, as we went through last week, he did enough just to keep us up. The defence has been much better. Attacking options were always going to be a bit of a struggle. I can say as well that with Ruben Sayers, his assistant manager, James Oliver Pearce, and the first team coach that he brought in as well, Tobias Loveland, have also gone. No great shock, obviously, because they normally hunt in packs, don't they? So, yeah, it's been understood that at least 2 interviews have taken place since the last time we recorded, one of which being the former Sunderland and Rangers manager, Michael Beale. No thanks. Please, God, no.
Sorry, just before you go on, this is just to clarify. This is the guy who set up a Twitter profile for his, I think it was analytics company, and then when things weren't going right for him at Sunderland, had someone tweet from that account that they agreed with some sort of like post that he'd put out in an interview or something like that, and it was like, hang on a second, so you've basically just liked your own post on Facebook. Yeah, that didn't go down well.
Don't get me wrong. I'm all up for somebody that's gonna sort of bring a bit of stability, can actually start to build a team. But like we've had 5 managers since the new owner took over, and we're on the brink of becoming a little bit of a Watford of the North, to my mind. So we need somebody that's going to come in and actually be here for the long term, and that can actually do the job that they've been employed to do. Not somebody who's going to be like, "Oh, are you going? Are you leaving the club?" No, I'm here, and then gets a better offer and fucks off in 2 weeks after that same interview. Not it. It's possibly one of the most uninspiring managerial linkages I've ever seen. Combine the fact that he's got one of them faces that you could probably punch for a fortnight and it won't look any different. I don't know. I don't like his style. He comes across as an absolute dick in the interviews that I've seen him do post game. And I'm aware that you probably need a bit of that in you to do that job, but it doesn't have to be hanging out for the world to see for the entirety of the time that interviews are taking place.
Was he the one who walked out on QPR to go to Rangers?
Yep.
And then got binned off by Rangers and then turned up at Sunderland, was it then?
Yep.
And he's the one.
He got 2 months at Sunderland before they got sick of him. So
yeah, so obviously full of himself. Yeah, I think I said the other day. I said you've got to be careful because it's kind of turning into a little bit like Forest were when towards the end of Fawaz and the beginning of Marinakis, and obviously it turned out well in the end. But it's some bleak seasons when you're just churning through these like shit, basically would be kind of, and it's just turning over shit from within. It's like they seem to take it in turns. Oh, here's a shit one here's a young guy, like you've done the Cells one, up and coming manager in England, even if he's not English. Then it's like, oh, let's do an old retread that didn't perhaps work for a while. Then let's try a foreign guy that's managing in the lower leagues but hasn't done a very good, it does a decent job but probably isn't going to struggle in the league.
We've already done that with Volta because he was managing in the lower leagues at Germany, so we can tick that one off the list already.
But you need to find. I mean, maybe Karanka can come back. You need like a tosspot kind of foreign guy who's done all right in the league, but is a bit of a diva. But yeah, also if anybody is unsure of what Michael Beale looks like, really going to age myself here. If remember the British Empire, he looks like the caretaker guy in the British Empire, and also has the funny little thing on the side of his face to match as well.
You know what? Ever since I've seen his face pop up on the articles this past week, I've been trying to place what I knew him from before, and that for the viewers on YouTube, if they've watched my face, there will definitely be a light bulb moment when Matt was talking just then because that was it. Oh my God!
That'll be the thumbnail of the podcast this week. Just Colin from British Empire.
Just to get through the rest of the Hull stuff. We've got no manager, but we've recruited a new head of recruitment. A 66-year-old Martin Hodge, I believe. He's a former goalkeeper in the league. He's worked with Burnley. Who was the other one? There was Burnley and another one. Possible. No, it's gone. But basically he's done okay in a couple of other places elsewhere around the level that we're at. So, little bit of experience. Not too disappointed. We'll see what he can get through the door because can't really judge the guy until he's made a few signings or helped to make a few signings at least. But he's worked with the sporting director previously, so obviously there is a link there as well. And this week, with the past weekend gone, we had the retained list, and there was a little bit of a surprise amongst it. The stuff that we already knew, however, Gustavo Puerta officially becomes a Tiger as of the 1st of July because of his appearances. It's triggered the clause where they have to buy him. Not disappointed with that, although because of the wages that he'll be on, there's already rumours that we might have to ship him on. Ryan Giles, anyone? So
no thanks.
Oh, but Paul, you were so excited about it. People that are leaving the club: Brandon Fleming, Callum Jones, Norden Amrabat, and Dogakan Sinek leave at the end of June officially. No real shocks amongst that. Amrabat was on a 1-year contract anyway. Sinek has obviously finally served his time, using up all of the physio benches across the entire clubhouse. I think that he's maxed out his loyalty points and is now, unfortunately, you can't cash it in for a new contract anymore. Brandon Fleming, however, ends a 16-year association with the club as he started in our under-10s and made it all the way to the first team. He, granted, didn't have the most appearances for the first team, but felt sorry for him this season because when we were struggling at left back, guess what position he plays? So he'll
Left wing.
I'm sure he'll pick up a club and do pretty well wherever he goes. I suspect it's probably more likely to be like a League One kind of area. But good luck to him. Nice guy. Works his ass off when we've seen him. So yeah. But the surprise is the club have exercised a 1-year option. So now somebody is staying, and that somebody is Joao Pedro. Everyone was expecting him to leave, and the club have retained him. So I'm quite happy about that. I think that with the right manager system around him, he obviously was top scorer this season. I think it'll only get better once he's got some service. And if we can keep a winger fit for more than 35 seconds next season, maybe we'll get to see that come to fruition. But yeah, there is some other stuff, sort of transfer rumours wise, but we might get to that if Paul maybe has anything for Middlesbrough. But we'll probably just take a very small break, I imagine now.
Yeah, we can have a little break and we'll come back. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Welcome back. See, like I told you, momentary break. Just it takes no time at all. So obviously, Mr. Woodmansey had discussed the retained list at Hull. So I will now do the same for the Borough. So this is directly from the Middlesbrough website. The club has submitted its retained list to the EFL ahead of player contracts expiring at the end of June. There's only really 2 players from the first team that have been that are out of contract. One of which is Anthony Dijksteel, who has been allowed to be to leave. The club haven't been entered into talks to extend his contract, which I'm a little bit disappointed about. I think he was a player who sort of split opinions. Really, I always liked him. I always thought he had a good engine. Was always good at getting up and down on the right hand side. Probably one of those players where he's designated as a defender, but defending wasn't really his strong suit. It was more the attacking side of things, which is not ideal for a right back. But you can't have it all, can you? So Dijksteel will be on the lookout for a new club. He joined the club in 2019 from Charlton. Did okay. Kind of looked out of his depth at first, but definitely sort of got up to speed with the division, and yeah, all in all, I think was a fairly decent player. The other person who's out of contract is Johnny Howson, but there are talks to extend his contract, probably give him another year, maybe with like one eye on moving him into sort of more of a coaching role within the club. He's been there since the summer of 2017, and he's made 341 appearances. So he was actually playing more as a central defender towards the end of last season. That was more sort of out of necessity rather than anything else because they had no fit centre halves at one point. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does get at least another year and just basically sort of work him on like a rolling year by year contract until he gets to the point where he wants to retire. All the players that were in on loan have just obviously gone back to their parent clubs. That's Mark Travers, Ryan Giles, Kelechi Iheanacho, Samuel Elling Jr. and Ben Doak. Doak obviously hadn't really played since around sort of Christmas, January time, as he picked up an injury and just never recovered from it, which probably coincides with when Borough's season kind of went to shit, to be honest with you, because he was basically their only output on the right hand side. When he was out of the team, they had very little. Of the players that they had in on loan, I wouldn't expect to see any of them back. Giles probably the most likely if they were going to look at that. That'll probably all depend on whether if Carrick is still employed, and whether the sort of the deal is right from a Borough perspective. I imagine Hull will probably want to recoup what they spent on him.
Well, no, they absolutely won't get that though because
I was going to say I can't see that happening.
No. Plus,
I imagine he's on a pretty penny as well. I imagine.
Well, he's not exactly proved himself in any stretch for me this year because actually, all that's been discovered is the second he doesn't get his own way, he just turns into a little bitch. So, like, he made such a song and dance about getting himself back to Borough, and then didn't he score 2 own goals in his first 3 games and never did anything else after that point?
I don't know if it was 2. He was definitely at fault for the winning goal for Sunderland. But yeah, after that, you could just tell his confidence was if it wasn't already at rock bottom, it was definitely going through the floor at an alarming rate of knots. So I'd be surprised to see any of them back. They'd probably like to bring in Travers as the goalkeeper, but his wages will be too high. And I think the early talks was that Birmingham are apparently offering him a contract, and obviously with Birmingham and Wrexham coming up as the big spenders, as they are with the American investment on both sides, well, Canadian and Wrexham's 50-50 side. So would be surprised would be the sort of long and short of that if they do sign any of the guys that they had on loan last season. And then there's just a boatload of players from the academy that have been let go, just like sort of a natural sort of turnover of the natural churn as it is from the academy. So that's all I've got from a Borough perspective. No real links yet. There's a couple of sort of rumours and stuff. Tyrese Dolan from Blackburn's been rumoured to be one of the ones that they're looking at. But yeah, apart from that, not really much happening at the Borough at the minute. No talk as to whether Carrick's on the chopping block or not. Apparently that review's still ongoing. They are looking to get the head of recruitment, Kieran Scott, tied down to a longer term contract. But as of yet, nothing doing there. And then you've got some transfer rumours to go through.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a real like shitfest, if I'm honest. So the one allegedly that there is rumored to be leaving after a bid or potentially bids have been lined up for is Cody Drameh, but you know he played all right when he was there. I didn't mind him too much at all. Problem was that he was a right back and the club captain's position is right back. So unless things were really going badly, then he was only ever really going to be a bit part player anyway, I think.
Yeah, but he just needs to bide his time, doesn't he? Because Father Time waits around for no man. And old man Louis is going to be on his last legs, isn't he?
Well, I think he'll be fine. But the club trying to sign him, Derby.
Ah, yeah.
Based around last season, why would you be selling players to like clubs who are directly competing at your level? Let's not tread that ground. But even more disappointing than that is the one that City have been linked to from a buy-in perspective.
Right, can I have a guess at this? Based on how you've described it, is it a forward from a Premier League team that's about to no longer be a Premier League team?
No.
Right, okay, so it's not Vardy then.
But it is an attacking player, and it is somebody who I would rate at the same level of, if not more, actually. How can I put this? It'd be quite up there on the prick scale. Any more guesses before I tell you?
Outside of Vardy, I can't really think of anyone who's out. Is it a guy who's out of contract, or is this like someone they've been
No,
paid money for?
it's a guy who's well versed in the championship level of football, but currently doesn't play in the championship because he decided to go abroad.
Shea Adams.
Not Mason Greenwood either. Before.
Ooh. I can't. I assume when you say it, I'll be like, of course.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you'll both react in the same way that I did when I very first read it. When I tell you that the player that we have been linked with quite heavily, Ollie McBurney.
Oh no! Oh no!
Exactly. So I don't know if they're planning on, running some kind of like secret underground fight ring instead of actually having a forward that wants to play football. But he's not interested in playing any kind of football. Would not be happy.
I will.
Yeah, those were the two rumours. But I also felt that couldn't let this particular podcast go when the teams have announced their retained list. All of the teams by now have obviously announced their retained list, including Millwall, who announced that one Aaron Connolly, after being there for a season,
6 minutes.
will be no longer required at Millwall, having been released from the rest of his contract.
Kind of just, we don't really need to discuss it anymore, do we? He's not a very good footballer. Let's just call it what it is. I know he's had problems in his personal life and stuff like that, which obviously you don't wish on anybody. But from what I've seen on the pitch, there's not a footballer in there for me. He's quick, I'll give him that, but he's not a footballer.
For a very short forward, he seemed to score a lot of headed goals, like for us, which I didn't understand. And I don't know if it's a case of that. It's like the vicious cycle of does the professional life create more problems that way in his personal life, and therefore he maybe just needs to get away from that to kind of break that cycle.
Yeah.
What else he will do? Obviously, we would wish him well in that, but I think you got to get one bit right to get, the other bit to get better, and
Yeah.
which way around that is for him, I don't think, that's been worked out yet. So.
I know obviously the season's not over yet, but is there any sort of rumours that are coming out of Forest about people that might be on the move or on the shopping list?
The shopping list is all over the shop. Kind of shock. It's the main one at the moment on a out kind of thing seems to be Man City are very, very interested in Morgan Gibbs-White as the De Bruyne replacement. Apparently they've cooled their interest on, is it Wirtz from Leverkusen, I want to say, because it was going to cost them the best part of 300 million euros to sign him with agent fees and wages and stuff like that. So they've apparently turned away from him, and Gibbs White is like their main focus.
It'll be all right. The owners will find a way of like writing it off as like a sponsorship deal for the stadium or the training ground or the kid team or something. I don't know. They'll find a way to fudge those books. It's fine.
But apart from that, no real. There's like lots of players linked, but I've not really looked at it yet because it's like it's a bit all over the shop, and depending on where we finish and where we're at, then
I was just going to say, I bet it'll all depend on which of the European competitions they end up in.
Yeah,
it'll dictate which players they'll feel that are like within their sort of
there's probably,
budget, but like in the sort of
There's probably two shopping lists. You've got your Champions League shopping list, and you've got your Europa Conference League shopping list. The other thing, I can't remember which club was linked to it, but Ross Wilson, the recruitment guy at our place, has been linked to another Premier League team, but I can't remember which team that was. But that one's a bad one. If he goes, that's concerning because he's the one who's all the signings of the last 2 seasons, your Alangas, your Hudson-Odois, anybody who's come through the door in the past 2 years is a Ross Wilson signing. He's the guy with all the links in Brazil and South America, which really put us up shit creek if we don't kind of thing. So hopefully with this kind of Edu kind of coming in as the CEO of like an umbrella thing over all the Marinakis owned clubs, hopefully that'll keep him kind of at Forest. It depends. At the end of the day, it depends on money, depends on cachet going to a different club. But you look at like Ashworth, who was at Newcastle, and he lasted 10 minutes at Man United because nobody could agree on anything. So that those are the 2 big ones at Forest: the Gibbs White one and the Ross Wilson one. I just, again, depending on where we finish, obviously the rumours will start to mount up. But I think Murillo, Gibbs White, Murillo, possibly Elanga. I don't know. He seems to love being at Forest, like properly. Whenever you see any of the videos, he like loves being at Forest, which is quite good to see. Aina might be another one that might leave. He's only got a year left on his contract because we activated a extension on it. Apart from that, I mean, maybe Milenkovic if someone goes after him. But
yeah, I suppose like the one that I always thought was always a possibility that he would move on was Murillo, but it obviously depends on because when he signed his new contract, did they have a buyout clause put into it? I don't know.
That was one thing. No Forest player has a release clause. No Forest player has a release clause. That's Marinakis is like, we don't do those. If you sign for me, you sign for me. And
that's a positive at least. So that if he does end up going, that's going to be for big money.
We end up with this bullshit kind of thing of like you've got, was it the guy at Bournemouth, Huijsen? Madrid have activated his thing the week, like 2 weeks before the end of the season, and you're like, that guy's going to be trying really hard for you for the next couple of games because he 100% is going to want to give his all and possibly get injured playing for Bournemouth when he's just about to go to Madrid.
This is my point from the game yesterday. So I was amazed that he played because, and then my mate was like, "Yeah, but he's Bournemouth's player." I was like, "Yeah, but if he gets injured, then bang, 50 million gone."
Yeah,
they're not going to buy him if he's injured. And he was like, "Yeah, they'll probably just have insurance." I was like, "Yeah, but the whole point of why they've agreed it now is that Madrid want him for this Club World Cup that starts in June 10th or whatever it is. So surely as part of the deal that they've agreed is that you don't play him for the last 2 games of the season." But strange.
Also, Cunha's the same as well, isn't it? Like with his wanting to go and win trophies. 62.5 million at Man United. Obviously him just weird.
I saw an interview building up to the Europa League final on Sky Sports News, and they were asking around the panel, how many players do you think Man United need to be back challenging for the top four? And there was a deathly silence in the studio until one of them went, at least one from every position.
Well,
It's 20.
if you think about it, like, if you think about it, like, honestly, and sort of, you'd maybe say that of the entirety, if the entirety of the first team, Fernandes nailed on starter, Diallo nailed on starter pretty much. Outside of that, they could improve in every position. Yoro's only young, I suppose, so he's probably he'll get better. He'll sort of like get up to speed and stuff like that. But outside of that, yeah, they need a player like in pretty much like 8 positions, and then obviously like squad depth and stuff like that. So you can make an argument they probably need to sign like 15 players for the squad to be anywhere near like capable of competing on however many fronts they're going to be. So yeah, weird. So that kind of brings us around to the end. I thought I would just sort of like, obviously we covered it last week that Wanyee suffered a really bad injury, and obviously I think at this point, at the point when we discussed it last week, was he still in the medically induced coma, or had he been taken out of it at that point?
No, he was still in when we were recording, I think, wasn't he?
Obviously, the good news that's come out is the fact obviously he's been removed from this medically induced coma, and it sounds like he's on the mend, and has he issued like a statement or something, or has he put something out?
Yeah, he's just kind of just thanking people for the support and all that kind of stuff, and he's on his way to recovery. Yeah. Who knows what that is though? That's the.
I think it's like we said last week. It's like we said last week. It's a case of he shouldn't even be thinking about like football for the next like 3-4 months. He should just basically be like focusing on just getting back like healthy. And then
it was a nice touch before the game at the weekend though, where they all had their shirts with his stuff on, and then when they won, they held up his squad shirt, didn't they, for the crowd? Yeah. So that was nice.
Well, the Gibbs white goal celebration was the Wanyee shirt as well.
Yeah.
And obviously we've taken our time to rinse West Ham, but I think when Gibbs White scored, it was at West Ham's end, and to be fair, there wasn't any kind of like obscene gestures, and I think I saw a couple of people stand up and clap as well, which is kind of.
But again, though, Matt, it could have been. It was just a case of like the stands were in a different postcode, so we couldn't tell what was going on. So.
but yeah, so kind of a decent West Ham fan who would have known. So yeah. So on the mend. But yeah, who knows? Kind of, priority's not football right now. Priority's just him, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So yes, good to hear that he's through the immediate danger and sort of that sort of stuff. So fingers crossed he makes a full recovery. So that's week 39 done and dusted. Last predictions done for the season. So join us next week, where we'll go through the Forest Chelsea game, where hopefully, fingers crossed, Forest have got the result they needed, and the other results have gone in their favour.
Everybody loses. That's what we just need.
Yeah, I was going to say Newcastle, Villa. Who's the other team that's involved?
Unfortunately, Villa are playing Man United, aren't they? So
yeah, but I said the thing that could go in their favour is if United have won the Europa League, the fans might be sort of up and buoyant and stuff like that. If they've lost, Old Trafford's not going to be a nice place to be on Sunday.
That will be if they lose, then they'll roll over because it'll be toxic.
Yeah, it's not going to be good, is it?
Goes another way, then maybe. But
so yeah, fingers crossed. So we'll go through the predictions for that the Forest Chelsea game, and we'll go over our season-long predictions that we made all the way back in August for what was essentially the Championship and the Premier League. So join us again next week where we'll go through all of that. all left for me to say is thank you to the two chaps that have joined me this evening. Thank you to you, the listeners and watchers, and we will see you next week for more. And it'll be the wrap-up show for the 2024-2025 season here on the CookieCast Football Podcast. But for now, it's tatty bye.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another one gone. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. Before you leave, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. There's plenty of places that will accept reviews for podcasts. And if you've got a couple of minutes on your hands, a review wouldn't go amiss. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we have social media links and an email button. And that way you can get in touch with these guys, anybody on the network, any of the podcasts we do. Drop us a line. Just say hi. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye. And I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.